there isn't like one rule that we're all like living by anymore. I think that's the fundamental change that we're kind of seeing right now.
It's the kind of the real sort of like tentacular expanse of fashion, which is often sort of like forgotten in these industry level discussions.
The paramount is less product, high quality product with a longer life.
You can't force creativity, or you can't create magic if you force it.
On a sort of more macro scale, I'm not really sure how much has changed. Like, I mean, when I was in Paris, it was so striking just to see how quickly everything snapped back into normal. And after, a year and a half of so much conversation around changes that need to be made and, necessary reforms on a sort of immediate level, at least, it really seemed like everything was back to the way it once was.
There is no longer a singular rule for any designer now. I think as a community, each one of us is actually assessing our path to success a little bit differently now. There isn't like one rule that we're all like living by anymore. I think that's the fundamental change that we're kind of seeing right now.
One positive change that happened thanks to COVID and the industry coming together is that creatives and creative entrepreneurs have the right to show the product they want as they want, when they want it, in calendar, off calendar, in season, off season, genderless, menswear, women's wear, whatever form of shape, digital, physical event. A more human approach to this industry with less mental fatigue, intense traveling schedule, impossible deadlines to hit.
So many brands adopted their own pace and kind of really innovated in terms of how they presented their collections and really thought about like what it really meant to kind of present not just clothes, but like a brand identity, a brand image, a real creative proposal. Brands big and small really took it as an opportunity to kind of like sit back and think about what makes sense for them, what pace makes sense for them, what the customers really want from them.
The fact that we're able to do an actual full buy over Zoom or Microsoft Teams Meet, I think those are two extraordinary outlets that we've been able to use during a time when I don't think in a different world we would have been able to do this buy. I don't know how we would have been able to do it. However, I feel like because it's a Zoom buy, instead of focusing in more on the timeline of buy, it became everybody just picked a date that was comfortable for them, not really focused on how that's going to affect all the buyers and their timing.
We went from this euphoria on direct-to-consumer to the understanding that direct-to-consumer it's a very tough, capital-intensive business where, between logistics and shipments and digital marketing, you are essentially investing far ahead in advance and in large proportion of your potential sales. The one element where I've seen some significant movement in the right direction is the re-seasoning of deliveries and relevance of product on shelves.
I was really grateful for the process in which designers and companies were able to switch to help in the buying, but also to remember that at the end of the day, this isn't going to be forever. And so what do you do to bring it back? And somebody has to say, here are your dates, or not.
Really about questioning the system and the ecosystem that we're all living in and say, okay, I'm going to rewire it according to what I think my needs are personally, my business needs are personally, and what my customers' needs are. So I think that is a fundamental sort of principle that I think that every person in fashion has to take on their own time. I don't think that there's a council that has to meet and says collectively, okay, like we have to agree that the calendar needs to be this way, the system needs to be this way, we need to show these things, and these are the seasons we need to kind of give to the customers. No, I think that is, for me, out the window.
We should look at niches rather than the industry as a whole. Large legacy brands with immense firepower have rightly so conducted the business as they see fit, unifying their efforts in order to have a direct relationship with the customer and essentially step by step cutting the rest of the industry off that equation. And then there is this beautiful, sizable niche of the fashion industry where we have all these insurgent, independent inspiring brands, which normally are strength and the fire on which the whole industry then relies for inspirations. And those early adopter customers, consumers, and those curators and editors and wholesale partners, which sometimes are in between the two. I always refer my attention to these niche because I find it exciting and new and interesting and independent.
There has to be a head that says, here are the dates and here's when we're going to show. I think the syndications in Europe, the organizations that really put this together, have to really make it so that it works for everybody, but not just for a select few.
A more kind of rigorous sort of approach to diversity and thinking about what it really means to implement diversity beyond sort of like, hiring a few new hires or, doing an odd initiative or two, or, these kind of very sort of like welcome and very necessary sort of like gesticulations. But, the issue of diversity and the reasons why there's a diversity issue go back much, much further than a few new hires. I think it's more a case of there needs to be more time spent really investing in, conceptually investing or really investing thought and time and emotion and energy and sort of figuring out how these very, very kind of like deeply entrenched complex issues can be resolved beyond wishing for change.
These niches should behave according to a new method and movement and calendar. And I do believe that the paramount is less product, high quality product with a longer life.
We individuals have to do our own rewiring. We don't need a system or a head of council to tell us how to rewire. So I think that no, there isn't a big system that needs rewiring. I think it's individual person that needs to kind of usher in their own rewiring system. I definitely think that, less is more. I mean, obviously that's such a simple phrase that everyone has heard, but like it's really more important than ever before. Less is more, but then at the same time doing it my own way.
Sustainability on a human level. What does sustainability mean beyond production? What does it mean about the actual livelihoods that are involved? And obviously they're so enmeshed. It's the real sort of like tentacular expanse of fashion, which is often sort of like forgotten in these industry level discussions, where it often centers on me and you and the people around us talking about what we can do in industry centres to address these issues, when people kind of forget just how wide it goes and what the sort of domino effect of these decisions really is.
For me, it's being very selective of who we are partnering with, because I don't want to ever lose control of what we're trying to do, because essentially what we're trying to do is not to make more collections. We're just basically trying to talk into product pieces, and that's it.
One significant change I would love to see is more and more influential retailers, and I like to mention Selfridges in this case because it was vocal about it, to decide autonomously that the seasonal markdowns only happen at the end of the season. Allowing that or having a movement in that direction will put product and the humongous effort it requires to build product in the heart and center of what we do, and will give it the right of being a lasting product rather than something which loses its value in the course of one season.
I would love to see earlier deliveries. I'd love to see things that have a longer shelf life in our stores. I found this year was a very interesting year for us because we actually never went on sale. We did not do a sale at all this year. I think we'll do one at the end of the year, but for this year we didn't. We hung on to all of our merchandise and it was more successful than anticipated. Is this the life of a retailer? Is that the way it should be? Probably not. People need to get rid of old merchandise, but it should have a longer shelf life. So one, I'd like a longer shelf life. And two, I'd like for sales to start later than they've been starting. And I think designers have really, they've made it very clear that this is what they would like to start later as well. And that is going to be incredibly successful for them in terms of longevity and sell-throughs. And then lastly, I would really, really, really love to have a more focused buying time frame, so we're not all over the place like we are right now in this moment. Everybody works differently and they work on their own time in their own ways. But I think if you want it to be harmonious and you want to weave in and out the way that we've done for umpteen years, we really have to think of everybody, and it can't be people, going rogue. It can't be, the selling part of it has to be more focused in a shorter time frame.
We don't need to develop an entire collection of 100 pieces for you to pick from to feel good about. Like it's about what I want to do for myself.
The fact that we're back to the pre-collections and the runway collections and more product, I wish we would have stuck with just 2 collections a year. I wish it was 2 major collections a year delivered in different blocks of time. But that's not the game that is being played, and I'm a team player, and I will do whatever it takes to help usher whatever new way that will work for everybody. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, you can't force creativity, or you can't create magic if you force it. So I really believe that we have to take this time and slow down and really figure out what it is that's going to work for the future.